That's when I really hit the field. Undefeated chance, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back. Okay, always locked in, now I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask. I just really hit the field. 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 Boy, I'm about to hit the field.
Welcome back to the Hitting the Field podcast. It's your boy Jeremy Brener here, and today it is the triple threat, or as I like to call it, the three hosts of Hitting the Field this year. Jeremy Brener here, joined by my two favorite hosts of Hitting the Field history, the greatest host of all time. On my far left, it's the host of Hitting the Fields, might I add, the grandfather of the show, Mr. Kyle Partain. Kyle Partain, what's going on, man?
What's up? Glad to be here again. Going to be a good week, and I am looking forward to today's podcast.
Yes. Kyle's been a busy man. Haven't cranked out a mighty ad in a while, but we'll be back on Monday for that, so be sure to check that out. And the host of the main show. We also haven't cranked out a main show in a while yet either, but Mr. Jaret Kappelman's always keeping it 100 with us here on the podcast.
Yes, I am.
Yes, so Jaret.
Glad to be back.
Good to be back. Yeah. And the man in the middle. How's your morning been, Jaret?
Well, I'm on time.
You're on time.
Remember last time I was definitely on time?
Yes, you were definitely on time.
Definitely.
You've never been late.
I've actually never been late to anything.
Never late.
Related.
Never late, Jaret Kappelman.
Actually, factual information, since having a car, my attendance percentage has increased about 120%.
Is there correlation? 120%.
That just does not compute.
It does. It does, though.
Does it, though? So because we had the Hitting the Feud annual show on Monday, today's podcast is going to take form a little different than what we're used to, and we're going to go a little bit longer today, and we're going to touch on multiple sports, everything that's going on, because, you know, it's always, I mean, it's great to have Hitting the Feud, and we loved it. Shout out to Miss Kayla Burge for sealing the W on Monday's show. Go check that out on our YouTube page if you haven't done so. I guess I just spoiled the whole episode, but there's some fun moments on that show, right?
I mean, we might have spoiled it, but the way it went down was...
Yeah, the way, there are things that you know the conclusion to. Like, you know the Patriots are going to win the Super Bowl every year. You just gotta, the way they get there is, is questionable.
You got the wrong person in the room to say that, man.
I mean...
As long as Jared's in here, he will point out it is not...
And then sometimes there's a plot twist and the Eagles win.
Every year. I'll find a negative in every situation. No, I'm joking. I usually find the positives in every situation. And... ignore that noise. They are doing construction in the NFC building.
UCF, under construction forever.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Ridiculous.
Yeah. But anyway, go check that out on our YouTube channel. But yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit of football today, and maybe, just whatever tickles our fancy, I guess.
Hoo-hoo.
We're going to start in the collegiate ranks today. The third edition of the college football playoff came out yesterday, and not much change at all. Number 1 through 7 all stayed exactly where they were. Minnesota dropped from 8 to 10. That's the highest team that lost over the weekend. I guess Minnesota is not it is who we thought they were, right, KP?
This is exactly what I predicted was going to happen, and it's no knock on Minnesota. I still believe Minnesota's a really good team, and last night on the rankings reveal, Reese Davis put it perfectly. Everything is still in front of them. If they run the table and win the Big Ten as a one-loss Big Ten champ, they're still in. Whether it's the 3 or 4, they're in the playoffs. So winning at Iowa's tough. Iowa's a tough team to play. We always see those top couple teams when they go in Iowa in November. Iowa City's a tough place to play, and they couldn't quite rally.
Absolutely. Jaret, what are your thoughts on Minnesota's win or loss over Iowa?
I mean, I almost want to say their win against Penn State was a fluke.
Was it, though?
I think it was. I mean, Penn State didn't really come alive till the second half, and that's also been the story of Penn State all season. They only play about one half of football. So, I mean, if Minnesota's in Penn State, do we think they win that game? Do we think they win that game?
I mean,
think it's
that's
close,
difficult
but
to
no.
tell.
No.
Difficult to tell.
I think Jaret has a point here. I think it's a close game. I don't think Minnesota's quite able to do it. I think they would still be emotionally charged and everything because it is, again, that was the biggest game for Minnesota in a long time.
Years.
Their biggest.
So, right.
in-
It's been however many years.
in
That's
program
the-
history.
That's the biggest game
arguably.
in that stadium since the Vikings-Seahawks playoff game.
Right.
I mean,
you're not wrong.
That's kind of a dig at Minnesota, honestly.
You're not wrong, though.
The Gophers, man.
But, like, I don't know. If it was in Penn State, I think it's close, but to Jared's point, I don't believe Minnesota wins. I'm not sure they're going to win the Big Ten West. I think Wisconsin still has something to be said, and if Wisconsin ends up beating Minnesota in 2 weeks, then you're looking at a Badgers Big Ten West championship.
If that I mean, the whole thing with Minnesota would be, like, they still would have to go through Ohio State. It's like, and Ohio State has been tested. They've been quizzed. They haven't really been tested. But the whole thing is Minnesota would not compete with Ohio State. They would not. That game would be a 35-point blowout in the first half, and Justin Fields would be on the bench, chilling, waiting to see who they're playing in the playoffs.
I think I have a little bit more respect for Minnesota than that. I'm not sure it's a 35-point blowout in the first half, maybe 35 points in the second half, but I have a little bit more respect for Minnesota. I do think PJ Fleck's got something going down there. I think he's rowing the boat, or I guess up there. He's rowing the boat pretty well. And
down. I mean, it depends. It depends how you look at it. If you look down enough, you might go up north.
Same difference. You're in Australia. You're looking whatever. Doesn't matter. But I
but
don't
not
think,
in Kyrie Irving's world.
That's right.
If it's Kyrie Irving, it's definitely up.
You know what this Minnesota team reminds me of?
What's
If
up?
you guys remember the first year of the college football playoffs, Ohio State versus Wisconsin, and Ohio State won that game 62-0 in the conference championship. This Minnesota team reminds me of that Wisconsin team.
Oh, yikes.
Great regular season, like they just beat who was in front of them, but when it mattered most, they folded terribly.
I mean, they didn't lose to Iowa by 9
That's what I'm
touchdowns,
saying.
though.
I don't think they did not fold terribly. I mean,
no, but I'm saying they're going to.
I don't see a reason for them to fold terribly. I mean, a 9-point loss,
A 4-point loss.
4-point loss, excuse me, 4-point loss in Iowa City is not a bad loss, and a win over Penn State, albeit not, the most dynamic Penn State team ever, still a good Penn State team. I mean, that's not folding when it matters most.
But who is Iowa beat this year?
Minnesota.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
but like
I'd have to look,
then it's like
I'll look it up right here.
I mean, Minnesota's beat Penn State so far, and that's it. I mean,
They've played a lot of teams
But
close.
to Minnesota's point, that's when it's mattered most for them, and they didn't fold when it mattered most for them. So, granted, do I think they end up winning the Big Ten? No. I don't think, even if they do beat Wisconsin, I don't think they have really a realistic shot at beating Ohio State. Assuming Ohio State does what it should this weekend against Penn State. But I don't think Minnesota has a realistic chance to win the Big Ten, but I do believe they're a New Year's Six team.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. If they make it to the conference championship as one loss, they should be a New Year's Six team.
And if they go to the Big Ten championship, lose to Ohio State, then
especially they lose a close game. It's like
then they're a Rose Bowl team.
So what happens in the what happens though? Let's say Minnesota wins in overtime against Ohio State. Is Ohio State like the 4 seed at that point, assuming like the SEC champ is LSU? Like
If they win out,
I would say a one-loss Ohio State whose only loss is to a one-loss Big Ten champ in Minnesota. I think they get in over a Pac-12 or Big 12 champion. I think Ohio State would be the 4.
I'll throw that question a little later down the road, but I do want to keep this in the Big Ten right here because the big game of the weekend is, without a doubt, Penn State going to Columbus, taking on number 2 Ohio State, one of the three now unbeaten teams.
What time is that game?
In the country? It's a 12 noon.
It's
game.
12, right? Yeah, and I'm
Which
not going
is-
to be able to watch it. Unlucky. I'm
Nope.
going to be working the Florida Classic. Thank you, Sports Business, for making me
Shout out.
volunteer.
Shout out SB. Shout out
SB.
SB.
I'll be working the UCF football game,
Shout
so I won't
out.
be watching that one either.
Oh, we played.
You going to NOLA this weekend?
No, I got to work from here.
Oh, really?
I cut highlights from the football stadium.
Oh, really?
I
So
remember.
You just go to the stadium, pretend like the game is right in front of you, but it's
Yeah.
actually on a TV.
I
screen.
got people working in there though, so it'll be there'll be people to talk to.
I
It should be
remember-
fun. We're still watching the game on the TVs, so we'll still be watching.
I just
the game.
remember saying after the Cincy loss, I said, "Man, we're gonna lose one of those 3 road games to a T team," and we lost to Tulsa, so we should beat Tulane.
I mean,
I mean,
I-
we'll
we
have
should,
our,
right?
We'll
We'll get
have
to
our
that.
UCF fix-in a little later on
we'll
the
get
show.
to
But
that.
let's
You gotta
let's
think.
bring this back to Penn State, Ohio State here.
Penn State. Where do we even start with Penn State?
Well-
Because it's the same story every year. You know how I say it's like new year, different me. For Penn State, it's new year, same me. Every single year, they're a better version of. They're just a slightly better version of Michigan. Because at least Penn State will win some big games in a year, but they will still find a way to choke every single year. But they can change that and beat Ohio State, which I'm gonna be bold and say they still lose.
Yeah,
bold,
I mean,
bold right there.
the however bold that statement is what you think the point differential is going to be. Because
So,
I do
yeah.
believe Ohio State wins. I think they're 18-point dogs, or
Seven-
Penn State's 18-point dogs right now.
17.5-point
Yeah,
favorites.
17 and a half is not a good line.
Which-
When you're a top 10 team and you're underdogs by 17 and a half, that's not a whole lot of
I
confidence.
I think they're giving Ohio State a full touchdown because they're at home.
No, I think
so-
Vegas. I think Vegas does 3 points for home. And
I
that's it.
mean,
It's college though.
this is college,
But I think-
I get that, but like
I actually agree with this because I think the jump from 2 to 3 this year is the biggest we've ever seen in a long time.
Nope.
Where-
Clemson,
so
we'll,
where-
we'll get to Clemson. I hope.
where
'cause
is
Clemson's
okay?
still really good.
So, KP,
Yeah.
make the case for Penn State here. Finish the sentence for me. Penn State will win Saturday because
Penn State will win Saturday because they're going to have to be able to run the ball effectively. If they can't run the ball, I don't think they have a shot at winning this game.
I think what Minnesota proved out of Penn State was they gave you the blueprint on how to beat Penn State, which is run the football down their throats. And no team can really do that better than Ohio State.
we're acting like Ohio
with
State didn't have
J.K.
that blueprint.
Dobbins.
Right? Yeah.
I mean-
I think Ohio State knew before Minnesota exploited that. I think Ohio State is perfectly capable and understanding of what they have to do to win realistically every single game on the rest of their schedule. I'm not sure any of these games are going to be that close. Granted, you look ahead 2 weeks, Michigan, it's a rivalry. You don't know what happens, but you know Harbaugh can't win big games.
So that game's supposed to be 20 degrees too. So like the Michigan game. So snow possibly. I mean anything can change at that point.
Yeah, it could be a 5-point win or a
It's-
50-point
it's
win for Ohio
supposed to be-
State.
Yeah.
Anything can happen.
It's
Harbaugh
supposed to be 41 degrees with rain, so almost snow.
That's this weekend or
this
next
weekend.
All right, I was just jumping into
In
Michigan.
Columbus.
This game,
Global-
I mean that does
global
change.
warming.
That
That
actually
makes
is a big
it
difference.
even better for Ohio State because hey, just run the football.
Yeah, I mean, and look, J.K. Dobbins, almost 1,300 yards rushing this year. Justin Fields, over 2,100 passing
and-
yards this
How are
year.
we not talking more about J.K. Dobbins? How has he not been more of a
Because
conversation?
the thing is, I
He's
feel like
overshadowed
Ohio
by two
State
names.
has been flying almost under the radar, only because the SEC this year has been the biggest dynamic conference, just because LSU this year is the team that has proven that they deserve the top spot, just because their wins are just the most impressive, their resume is the most impressive. They beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa, so I think LSU is like is hogging the spotlight a little bit because just they're playing in bigger games at this point. This is Ohio State's biggest game on their schedule, and they're 17.5-point favorites. LSU, look, I mean, you could have said LSU was maybe a top 10 team at this. Like if you said at the beginning of the year that we would be in the middle of November, LSU would be the number 1 team in the country, you wouldn't have said that. But
I said they'd beat Bama at the start of the year.
okay, but
did you really?
Yeah.
Okay, but
give you
did
that
you
respect.
expect LSU to be where they are right now, number 1, with Joe Burrow as Heisman
'cause I
candidate?
Because honestly, my pick to win the SEC this year for some reason was Florida.
Exactly, and they beat.
I said it would be
Florida.
I said it would be a Florida LSU SEC championship.
They beat Florida.
and
They
Yeah,
beat
you have
Auburn.
half of it right, though.
yeah.
I mean, technically,
beat
LSU
Texas.
hasn't locked up the West, but You got to beat Arkansas. I mean, you're locked up. If all you have to do is beat Arkansas,
They are
to win the
44-point favorites against Arkansas this weekend.
I'd honestly bet the under. I'd bet Arkansas on that.
You think Arkansas covers?
I think so.
A 44-point.
Look at LSU.
This is a team that lost to San Jose
Okay,
State.
but LSU, what'd they win? 67-38 last week. They just they give up points.
58-37.
Yeah,
they just give up points.
That's coming off of a huge game.
Yeah.
You knew there were going to be some things that weren't quite as sharp against Ole Miss.
They still gave up 40 to Alabama or whatever that was.
Yeah,
I mean,
LSU is not the most elite defense in the country. They're not.
No.
But that offense is probably the most talented offense in the country, and Joe Burrow
talented
is unbelievable.
Talented, no, but
You don't think
clicking
so?
together and playing as a team, yes. Talented, you're going to tell me that Alabama's offense does not have more talent on the field than LSU? They have 3 first-round wide receivers. They have a top 3-round running back, and they had a first-round quarterback. And their offensive line, their offensive line's been trash. That's why 2 is hurt. But
Yeah, I do want to talk more about Bama. I don't know if that's the time is now or later, but I do. There is a lot about Bama that I want to discuss.
I'll open up with Bama if we can.
But I do want to ask this question because there was one question that you said, Jaret. So the drop off here is 2 and 3, you believe, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So KP, where do you believe the big drop off is?
3 and 4.
3 and 4.
I think Georgia would slap Clemson so hard.
That is so much disrespect for Clemson.
It is. Who is Clemson? Clemson hasn't even been pop quiz this year.
They beat UNC.
Clemson has been rolling.
UNC.
Clemson has won 4 in a row by 45 or more. You don't even see Alabama putting up those kind of wins this season. That doesn't happen. I don't care if Clemson hasn't played anyone. When Clemson actually is tested,
Jaret wants to do some research.
You want a fact check?
I do want a fact check. All right, they played Wake.
Make it 4 in a row. Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, they were 34.5-point favorites. They covered. Congrats. NC State, they're not playing anyone.
But they're doing what a good team should do against nobodies, and they are destroying them.
35.5-point favorites.
Schedule.
They covered.
Clemson, and we. Granted, you can't put everything on common opponents. It shouldn't common opponents should not be the ultimate deciding factor. But they do get South Carolina in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
There is not one good win on their schedule right now. A&M, I'll give them A&M.
Texas A&M's a decent win.
But they were home. They were home.
To
Doesn't
be fair,
matter. You can only do it what your schedule is.
I know.
And they are doing excellent against that schedule. They're not squeaking by like Florida State did in whatever year it was. 2013 was it? 2014.
Okay, but UCF would play who that was in front of them, and they would blow out teams, and they got no respect.
I will say this.
No, I know. I know what you're saying.
I will say this.
I know.
I will say this. I think that it's without question LSU and Ohio State should be 1 and 2.
Yes.
And last year, the drop off in the last several years have been the drop off was at 2 and 3, with Alabama and Clemson were clearly the top 2, and then whoever was number 3 was clearly number 3. However, this is Clemson we're talking about, the reigning national champions, and they have a quarterback who has won a national championship before. So that is I guess the argument that benefits KP's argument is this is Clemson, and maybe they probably won't have to play anyone until the national semifinal if they're number 2, or if they're number 3, or if they're number 4. I think there's a chance that they're number 4, especially if Georgia decides they want to win the SEC this year.
I can throw 2 things at you real quick about this Clemson team. We can compare them to the first playoff year where Florida State were the defending national champs, did not play anyone on their schedule, were the 3 seed, got blown out by Oregon. And then we can also throw it to last year's Alabama team, who had a cupcake schedule and defending national champs, still had all the talent, met Clemson in the national championship, and simply got blown out and embarrassed. It matters.
I will say I do think being battle tested does have some impact.
It matters.
And this Clemson team is not as battle tested this year. But they did beat a really good Alabama team last year.
Let's pump the brakes on that comparison to that Florida State team. That Florida State team had to come back in nearly every single game. They were not dominant performances.
No, and that's what
games.
I'm saying.
But Clemson is dominating, and that's got to matter at some point. It shows you they care. Clemson is ready, and they are still as talented as ever. And I could see Clemson still making a run, and I think they're peaking at the right time.
Clemson's played one tough game all year, and that was A&M. That UNC game was not looking at it, we're not like, oh, that's a tough game for them. No. But it turned out to be. Don't you feel concerned that, hey, maybe my team might forget how to play from down? They have not spent that much time down this year. Playing from behind is a lot different than playing when you're up. When you're up by 20, you can just run all over them. When you're down, you got to throw. Trevor Lawrence was the Heisman favorite coming into the year, and he has not looked anything like he did last year.
What I will say
Does that concern you if the game needs to rely in the hands of Trevor Lawrence?
Here's the question I want to pose. I know your answer, Jaret. KP, this is for you.
All right.
Clemson plays Ohio State. Who wins?
I want to score as well.
I would take Ohio State on a neutral site. Okay. Do I think they run Clemson out of the building? No. I think if I'm looking at a final score, I'm guessing somewhere along the lines of Ohio State puts up 35, and Clemson's going to put up 27-28.
So Clemson LSU, who wins?
Clemson LSU. Part of me wants to pull the upset, but I'd still take LSU.
So would you say that?
I don't think Clemson should be favored against either one of those two teams.
So you think that Clemson should be in like almost their own tier? Like, let's say the great teams or let's just say the exceptional teams are LSU and Ohio State. The great team is Clemson, and then the good teams are everyone else.
Well, you could argue that Clemson is still looking. I firmly believe Clemson is still an exceptional team. I don't think they're as exceptional as those first two, but I don't think there's this big drop off. Are they as good as LSU or Ohio State has been? No, they're not quite that good, but it's not as big of a drop off as some people are saying. Mm-hmm. I would take Clemson to keep it close. I would have them cover in. I don't know what the favorite would be. I don't know what the point.
It would be close. I think I would say that LSU or Ohio State would be favored, but I think it would be close. I agree with you.
I would keep Clemson.
I hope we get that game because I'm sure it will be a good game. But now, let Jaret just.
If everything stays straight up right now, and let's just say Georgia wins the SEC championship, Clemson would be the 4th seed behind 2 1-loss teams.
No, Clemson would.
They would be behind Georgia. No, they would not. No, they would not. LSU's one loss would be to the number 4 Georgia. Georgia's one loss would be to South Carolina. But it doesn't matter when you beat the number 1 team in the country. That's all I got to say.
All right.
And also, LSU and Ohio State would put up 50 on them.
Okay.
Clemson.
All right. So let's move on. Because we've been waiting for this, and we've mentioned it several times already. But now I finally want to dive in to Alabama, because this weekend was
Speedy recovery.
A very, very seismic change. And the thing is, I wouldn't say it's over for Alabama, but I mean, look,
it's definitely not the start.
From an X's and O's standpoint, how does Mac versus Tua affect this team?
I'll start on this real quick.
Yeah.
I said it yesterday at work to Dom, and
shout out to Dom.
Dom Smith, I love that guy. We both agreed that I could succeed in this Alabama offense because all you need to do is throw a 3-yard slant or a screen and let your 3 first-round wide receivers do the rest of the work. I mean, you have top talent running back. You have 3 wide receivers that will go in the first round. There isn't really much to do other than catch the snap and throw it to their chest and let them run. This Alabama team needs to figure it out on the front 5. That offensive line needs to get it together because that's what's hurt them the most.
So what does that say about Tua at the end of the day?
I didn't think he was the best. I thought he was the 3rd best quarterback this year. I put Burrow and Herbert in front of him.
I mean, you just made it sound like that Jaret Kappelman, let's just say,
well, I mean, I'm not as
10,089th best quarterback in the country could succeed in the Alabama offense.
I think so. I mean, the only difference between Mac and Tua, I think, will just be the extension of plays. Because, I mean, obviously, Tua is very athletic. He uses his feet to extend the plays a lot. But realistically, what are you doing more than a 3-step drop back and hitting rugs on a slant? Like, what are you doing?
That's fair. KP,
I'm currently on that Alabama Mississippi State score,
and I've got as well as you can.
The scores of those 4 quarters highlighted.
Yeah.
First half, 35 points. Tua plays first half against Mississippi State, 35 points. Second half, no Tua. a grand total of 3 points against a bad Mississippi State team.
And
yes,
to be
the
fair,
offense changes. Is it a terrible offense? No. It is not as dynamic though, and I just don't. Let's pull up Mac Jones on
Mac
his stats.
Jones, 7 of 11. Is that 84
7
yards?
11, 94 yards. I mean, were they? I think Bama was just trying to get out of that game.
The problem is Bama now, it's a run-first team, and that's not the style that this offense is used to, and it's going to take some adjusting. And they've got a perfect opportunity. They got Western Carolina this week. So,
they're going to figure it out.
That is a blessing.
Are they still
That
a
is
great team?
for them.
Yes, Alabama is still a great team. But are they as dynamic on offense? And do you firmly believe they are one of the 5 best teams in the country without Tua? Pump the brakes on that.
So I hate to compare this to UCF because I do believe it is apples and oranges, but there are a lot of ironic parallels to the situation here and the situation there.
Are.
You know, we had a Hawaiian quarterback. Alabama has a Hawaiian quarterback. You know, catastrophic injury for UCF, catastrophic injury for Alabama.
There's
UCF
just
replaced by Mac.
What?
Alabama replaced by Mac.
What major difference though?
So what's the one major difference?
We had to jump right into a conference championship.
Okay, but guess what Darryl Mack did in that conference championship?
I know.
6 total touchdowns.
Okay, but
conference MVP
Mac
in
Jones,
that game.
it's a little warm-up.
It did take a half to get that to get his footing.
And
it
took a half
but
and
you
3
still
fumbles.
got the win, and Alabama is going to get Western Carolina to come up, and the big game here is Auburn. Because
oh yeah, that's the season keeps the season alive.
That's the season there. So you're really preparing for Auburn. You have a bye week scrimmage right here, basically. It's Western Carolina, but Mac Jones can, use this week to get used to that first team reps, get the chemistry better with Ruggs, with Judy, and get the flow of the offense. Because Mac Jones not getting a whole lot of reps with that first team in practice. So, but I mean now he's getting all the reps he needs. He's figuring it out. And look, backup quarterbacks can win in college football. We've seen it before in recent history. Cardell Jones and Tua himself.
Tua was a backup.
Yeah. So it can't not be done.
The good news for Bama is that Auburn's offense has not looked great since that Florida game. I mean, really all season they were...
Did you think it looked great against Florida either?
No, I'm saying like that Florida game and on was like when it just stopped.
Okay, yeah.
Like since that Florida game, they just didn't do anything. But, I mean, the thing with the Georgia-Auburn games, like if we want to touch on Auburn-Bama, like Auburn didn't show up till the fourth quarter. And realistically, they had a shot at that game. If that onside kick doesn't get flagged back, that game's completely different. It could still be going on right now in like a bunch of overtimes. But the thing with Auburn is they're just not that dynamic of a football team. You know what they're gonna do when they go down. They can't run the ball when they are down. Versus other teams like Ohio State, they can afford to. Hey, we can run the ball even if we're down 14 because we know that's like one of our go-to plays. Auburn hits the panic button every time they fall behind, and it seems like they don't figure it out till late.
Right. So here's I'm going to throw out another scenario. Again, I've done it the last 2 weeks on the podcast. Going to do it again. Does losing Tua hurt Alabama's chance? Because Alabama needs some luck to get in. They need LSU to win that conference championship over Georgia. And they obviously need to be Auburn.
Well,
if it falls into their lap, does the loss of Tua hurt their chances at moving up to the fourth
spot? I don't think that even matters as much as a one-loss Oregon conference champion.
So look, one-loss Oregon conference champion
is a better resume.
One-loss Alabama. Who does it?
A one-loss Oregon, regardless if they had Tua or not, assuming Georgia loses, because Oregon's resume is just better.
Here's the thing. This prior to this week,
go ahead.
This was set up. I firmly believe the committee had set it up for Alabama to still make the playoffs. I firmly believe prior to this week, when you look at that, if they had run the table and they had beaten Auburn, that's a common opponent over over Oregon that they have a win over. Oregon does not.
The common opponent thing.
And they could say, hey, Alabama's one loss was a close one to the number one team in the land, and they looked good. They've dominated their schedule. we believe they are one of the 4 best total teams based off this eye test.
So let me
Now-
throw you a
That could still be the
curveball.
thing.
No.
Let me throw you a
without Tua,
curveball.
do you firmly believe, without Tua Tagovailoa, that they are unequivocally, one of the 4 best teams in the country?
Because the thing is, they're gonna have to play LSU again if they.
Do you truly
are
believe
number
that
4.
they are one of the 4 best teams in the country? Throw everything else out. Throw resume. Throw it all out. Are they one of the 4 best teams in the country without Tua? And I don't
Without
think it's
Tua?
close. I don't believe they are.
I think these next 2 weeks will tell us.
I think they are a top.
they're top
5
6.
They're
for
top 6 or
sure.
7. Yeah, but
I
they're
think
not.
they're top 5.
I think these
they're
next
not-
2 weeks will tell
They are
us.
not
So-
one of the top 4 teams in the country.
I think. So let me throw a curveball up there. Oregon obviously has
Did you bang a trash can before? Like, is that?
You know what?
I got to get some Astro.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
guess-
banged
gotta
a
get-
trash can. How about that?
Ooh,
I
he
just
hit,
banged
That was
Jaret.
rough.
he hit me.
That
Yeah.
was rough. That was
Yeah.
rough.
You come out with
This
that.
is-
I have several comebacks for that one, and they are pretty good.
That was pretty
So,
good. That was a good one.
Yeah. Okay. So let me throw this curveball at you. Who gets in? 1-loss Alabama without Tua, or 1-loss conference champion Utah?
Utah.
Utah.
That's a no-brainer. They'd have a top 6 win over Oregon. That's better than anything Alabama.
I
can put
still
on their
think a
resume.
1-loss Oregon before would have got in conference champion, just because that conference championship is valued. But I mean, we've seen the Bama bias before.
It's all fine and dandy that the two of you feel this way, but neither you nor you are on that college football playoff committee.
No,
Unfortunately.
thank God. I don't want to be locked in a room.
I've asked
13 hours, whatever it is.
I've asked what y'all think, but what do you think the college football playoff is going to do? Because that's what matters at the end of the
Well,
day.
I'm sure they were all in the room
Yeah.
for Tua's procedure. Like, are you going to come back? Are you going to come back
Right.
this season? Like, please
Dropping
come back.
junior mints in there and stuff.
Like,
you know.
Maybe see how bad the injury is to determine. Maybe that has brownie points.
They're
or
like, hey,
something.
how good is Mac Jones? Like, should we put you guys in still? No. I mean, before I would have said, I was actually surprised that coming into last week that Georgia was ahead of Bama. I really was. I just thought they'd keep Bama in front of them just because Bama's only loss was to the number 1 team in the country, which was close. And is it like with the committee and their consistency? Clearly this year, a bad loss doesn't mean anything. But in the years past, a bad loss meant a lot. But like Georgia's loss is to South Carolina at home, and that's just been completely thrown out the door. First, Oregon's loss is to Auburn. So it's like, I mean, I know Georgia beat Auburn, so a common opponent should be in front of them. But like, why was Bama behind Georgia before the Auburn game when Georgia's loss was terrible?
1-loss Penn State, who lost to Minnesota, is ahead
Yeah.
of
One loss.
Minnesota.
I want to do a little spiel here. I do not like where this playoff committee is trending. This rankings in particular, this set of rankings is really bad. They have shown zero consistency over the years what their model is. No one knows what their model is. It's just 13 people saying, "Oh, I like this team. I like this team." You look at it. In the top 10,
Yes.
how on earth is Minnesota behind Penn State when they have the same record and Minnesota beat Penn State? How on earth, in what other scenario does that make sense for any other conference?
No, it doesn't.
Brand name. There's your difference. And you look at
So yeah,
how on earth
brand
is-
name. You just said it. Two words right there. It's the key words.
But that's what I'm
brand
saying.
name.
You look
That's
at
why
Alabama-
Alabama's going to make the playoff.
You look at
even
Al-
without
I
Tua.
agree with
That's
you.
why they're
I
going to make the
agree with
playoff.
you.
Same thing. A 3-loss Florida is always in like the top 10 still.
You look at
2-loss
Alabama and
Florida
Oregon,
is the highest
right?
2-loss team in the
Let's-
country.
let's take a look at Bama and
probably-
Oregon, right?
Florida
Their
is the
schedules.
best 2-loss
Their
team in the
schedules, right?
country.
Alabama this season, right now, there is no one on this list, on these playoff rankings that Alabama has beat. USC just popped in this week.
Mm-hmm.
That is a top 25 win that Oregon can say they have. And they have, well, not a better loss, but a good loss, as far as good losses go, quote unquote,
No such
to
thing,
Auburn
but
in
yes,
the
I
first
get it.
game of the season that they probably should have won that game.
Yes.
If you're going off of resume, which I don't know if the committee cares about the resume. I don't care. I don't know if they knock teams for eye test. I don't know what they're doing because Oregon should be in front of Alabama. Do I believe Oregon would beat Alabama in a football game on a neutral site?
Tua, no, without
I believe they would
Tua,
beat
it's
them right
closer.
now. I
Without
do
Tua.
believe Oregon would win that game.
Yeah,
right
without
now.
Tua, but
Without-
with Tua, you're going to take Bama.
Right, but that's the thing is the committee says in their rankings they wipe it all off, clean slate every week.
Good one,
That
committee.
is
Good one.
such a lie.
Because Alabama would be further down if that was the case.
Right. It's not about. It's literally about you wait your turn and see who loses in front of you, and then you get bumped up. That's it. There's no way you jump up unless you have a monster win like Minnesota did against Penn State. And there are no monster wins to be made for Alabama.
Well,
so how can Alabama possibly be in the top 5?
Out of the one-loss teams that are in the top 7, Alabama has the best loss.
But are we really saying they're a better team because they have a better loss?
But
Oregon's got a better resume.
Yeah, I was going to say, Bama might have the best loss, but, like, honestly, Oregon's got the better loss with the better wins.
Yeah, Oregon's loss is a fine loss as far as losses go, and we can't. That is a bad trend to be setting. If we're ranking teams because they have a better loss, therefore I think they're a better team. Are we serious?
I've said it before. You want to lose as early in the season as possible, and losing week 1 is the best thing you can do to help yourself in a way. Because, like, I mean, everyone forgets. Who remembers the details of that Oregon-Auburn game? I do, because it was completely blown. But, Oregon just absolutely choked.
Here's my honest question. Say Oregon wins that game against Auburn. Where are they in
Number
the
3?
rankings?
They would be the 3. They would be the number 3
Clemson
team.
would
And
be
Clemson
4.
would be 4,
Yeah.
Georgia 5, Bama 6.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oregon would be 3 in the country.
My thing is, the committee, what was their reason for putting Ohio State 1 in the first rankings? LSU had the better schedule, and we knew the winner of that LSU-Bama game was going to 1. Why did they even put Ohio State at 1? What was their reason?
That's what I'm saying. They didn't have the resume.
They wanted. I think honestly, they wanted to show them some love because
But that's the thing.
Because obviously
You can't
LSU
show love. You have to do
That's the
based
thing.
off your
It's-
standards.
It's the eye test. The eye test matters more than the resume.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama's resume is garbage, but the eye test, they pass the eye test, so they're number 5 in the country. Like it's senile, dude. Like
I was thinking Ohio State didn't have one close game all year, so hey, we're gonna put them number 1. Hey, but it doesn't matter because LSU-Bama will be 1 after this week.
But that's the thing is like LSU. Doesn't the resume matter? LSU, you look at now. Texas isn't in there anymore, but you look at this
that
wins
Texas
they have.
win counts. It was
Right.
on the road.
It's a tough.
Prime
It's a
time.
good Texas team, not a great Texas team, but a good Texas team in the beginning of the season, week 2, I think it was. But you look at this; they've got wins over Alabama, they've got a win over Florida, a win over Auburn, soon to be a win over Georgia. If you can
4
find
top
a better
25
resume,
wins right there.
hats off to you if you can find a better resume than that. I mean, Ohio State will probably have a win over Penn State.
Do you want me to email you my resume?
Oh, I do want to see your
Okay,
resume.
cool. It's probably better.
But to be honest, is Cincinnati that great of a win? Like I know they're ranked, but like
Well,
the way
that's the
Cincinnati's
thing.
been playing lately, do you really believe
People
that
are
they
saying-
are the 19th best team in the country?
When Ohio State was 1, everyone's like, Ohio State's best win was Cincy. And I was like, okay, but is Cincy like that great of a
Is
football
Cincinnati
team?
better than Florida and Auburn and Texas?
Like the American, like I'm so glad to see a lot of American teams ranked, but like no team is better than UCF was in 2017 or 2018. These teams would not compete with those teams.
I think Memphis
What
is
I
an
would
exception.
like
I
to
think
see-
Well,
Memphis
yeah,
is-
Memphis would compete with us every. Memphis is.
What I would like to see with the college football playoff, because
8 teams, 10 teams, 12 teams,
no, I want to see
6,
like
7.
a point system
There is a points. Oh no, never mind. It's the AP
Wait,
poll. We
the-
do points.
similar to how the AP is.
Oh, you want to see
Like how the
they're-
MVP.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, you want to
Like-
see how they're. I could.
yeah,
I could get
because
behind that.
Well,
because
supposedly
it will show us
Where the
'cause
thought process is.
Where the thought process is.
Well-
and how much better Georgia is than Alabama. How much better Clemson is than Georgia.
Well,
It will
the
show us
whole-
where the real drop off is.
supposedly they don't.
Because
They,
according to the AP, the drop off is from 3 to 4. I mean,
Yeah,
granted,
but
those are the 3 teams that have not lost
supposedly,
a game. And,
like, you know how they do the rankings? Supposedly is they don't release the rankings until everyone agrees. So it's not like, oh, well, LSU has, let's say there, what is it, 12 people, 13?
yeah, it's a jury.
12, let's say like 10 people think LSU should be 1 and 2 people think Ohio State. They're not going to say, okay, LSU's the 1. They're going to, until they all talk it out and determine, okay, this team is the unanimous 1, this team is the unanimous 2. That's supposedly how it's done.
Do you actually believe that though?
Well, I think they'd still be locked in a room.
Right.
So I think
Right.
they go, all right, hey, we're Bama fans, right? Woo, okay, Bama 5, woo.
Yeah, no one's ever. An entire group of people is never going to have the exact same 25 teams in the same order. That is never going to happen.
Exactly. But why say that?
You're right. So I don't care if people disagree on the committee. That's part of the joy of college football. People disagree. You don't have to put up this face, this front that you are something that you aren't, and that's clearly what the committee.
I just think there needs to be a little more transparency with
completely agree.
with the CFB, rather than not just a 30-minute ESPN gig on Tuesdays that say oh yeah, we believe this, we believe that. I mean, I didn't watch last night's show. I don't watch the show. Like, the thing is, 30-minute show when you need like 5 seconds of information, it's not worth my time.
I watch the rankings reveal and then I'm done.
Yeah, it's on in the newsroom. We get up, watch it, and then we go right back to our desk and just go back to work.
So I mean, that's all I'm going to talk about with the rankings because they frustrate me. But anyway, I do want to circle back to Tua here. Obviously, his injury is pretty significant, and it should affect his draft stock.
I almost think
Jaret, yeah, go ahead.
It's like I've been saying, like, it wouldn't surprise me if he stays because of how significant an injury is. An NFL team wasting a first-round pick, let alone a top 10 pick for something that we don't know how he's going to come back from is just a huge risk. Now, I mean, they're saying he's going to make a full recovery, and I sure hope he will. But the whole thing is, what is a full recovery? At what level will he be?
But Jaret, here's the thing: you got to go get that coin.
Oh yeah, but I'm saying, what if teams are saying we don't want to risk it?
I'm sure he's.
I can tell you there are teams in the NFL that are probably taking a look at him, and they'd be willing to take that risk and take that gamble. So for me, I think Tua's best situation right now, I think he's a lower end of the top 10 pick.
Top 10
of the top 10.
Top 10.
I do.
Well,
I think he's a lower end.
I don't think there's 3 teams in the top 10 that need quarterbacks because he's the third quarterback now for sure.
Quarterbacks are a totally different story just because there are teams that trade up for quarterbacks now. Like,
True.
That's the thing is, so like, there might not necessarily be that many quarterback needy teams because most of the teams that are in the NFL have gotten a quarterback in the draft that they are planning on using sometime that are still on the rookie contract.
But what I'm getting at is someone is going to pick him up, regardless of when that happens in the draft. Someone would pick him up. Tua would be making money. Take a year, recover,
like a redshirt year.
Right, you don't
Patrick
have to play
Mahomes
back
was redshirted.
Right, you don't have to be playing in college for another year. You can be making some sort of income.
At least you got that coin, though.
Right.
You could have that Todd Gurley moment because what was Todd Gurley drafted? I don't remember, but
he tore his ACL and was still drafted in the top.
Week 13. That
right,
year?
that's what I'm saying. If Tua, I think that's Tua's best path. I think he should return to college. It doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt,
I
but
think it does.
you want to secure the bag before they realize. Because if he comes back and they realize he can't play, at least you got the bag from an NFL team.
Yeah, and that's where his best path lies.
So here's my thing. The one place that I thought Tua would make the most sense in for an NFL team is there any guesses that you two have as to what I'm thinking?
Is it a team that needs a quarterback?
Yes, it is.
I mean, if we're going off a team that needs a quarterback, I mean, there's so many teams that need a quarterback. We've said it before. If you give me the AFC, NFC, I'd probably.
Okay, it's an NFC team.
NFC team.
I mean, yeah.
Oh boy.
Hold on. We literally mention he mentions it all the time.
All right.
Too.
I'm gonna throw out a wild guess.
Was it the Buccaneers?
I'm gonna throw. Is it Tampa?
It's the Buccaneers.
It is the Buccaneers.
I was gonna go Tampa, or maybe even you could throw Chicago in that mix.
Well, here's the thing.
Chicago needs a lot of help.
No. So this is why I think the Bucs are the only team, literally the only place I think Tua would actually succeed in the NFL. Tua is glorified, I think, because of the talent that is around him. He has first-round receivers. He's been working with NFL receivers since he got to college. He's been working with an NFL offense. Most of the guys that he's played with will be in the league. And he makes plays because the guys around him can make plays. Tampa has that. Tampa has Mike Evans. Tampa has Chris Godwin. Tampa has O.J. Howard. They have pieces there that can go and make plays for him that a team like Cincinnati, who will likely get a quarterback, can't provide.
A.J. Green and Joe Mixon.
A.J. Green, who has no legs, and Joe Mixon, who
got
has
his first
played
rushing touchdown
awful
of the season.
But I mean,
Joe.
So that's not a team that I want Tua going to. Tua would struggle there, and then you could say the same thing for like Tennessee. Tennessee doesn't have a whole lot of playmakers. He does have Derrick Henry, but I mean that does nothing to do. Anyone can succeed with Derrick Henry as their running back, I think. But that's the one team that I think Tua would actually do well in. Guys like Joe Burrow, guys like Justin Herbert, they can make plays on their own. They are more of the catalyst when it comes to making those plays.
If I'm getting this right, you're implying that Tua is not that great of an individual player.
I believe that Tua needs talent around him in order to... the thing is this. I think there are players like Lamar Jackson, like Deshaun Watson, that make the players around them better. And then there are receivers like DeAndre Hopkins, like Jerry Jeudy, that make their quarterbacks better.
I mean, so that's like in a way saying I could be good if I had Julio Jones, DeAndre Hopkins.
He's a game manager. He's a very good game manager. He's not a game changer. He's not.
I still think Tua is talented.
I think Tua is
He's
really
talented.
good player.
There's nothing wrong with that. Look, Kyle Allen is very talented.
He can make play. I mean, I think Tua's like on that Baker level. Like he's like he can make plays happen himself.
I think Tua has two issues, and I don't think either one is his talent. I think one is how fragile he is, and I think two is his size. I think those are his two big.
And those are two things that will knock him off of half the boards in the league today.
But look at Kyler Murray.
Kyler Murray is not as fragile as Tua is, though.
Kyler Murray,
he's like
I think
5'10".
Right, but that's my point. Is he doesn't have those two issues. Those are two glaring issues.
and Kyler Murray is also now in an offense that is being tailor-made for him. They hired a new coach because of him. They got a brand new offense, arguably because of him.
That is a good point.
You can do that for Kyler Murray. You can't do it for Tua. Tua's not that kind of player. And look, game managers can succeed in the NFL, and there are really good game managers that can succeed in the NFL. There are really good game managers that can win you a lot in the NFL. And, I think his ceiling, if he ever were to play in the NFL, his absolute ceiling is Jimmy Garoppolo.
Okay, and I want to compare Tua to one person, another lefty who had a similar style, a bit more run heavy, Tim Tebow.
That's not who I want to be compared again.
But I'm saying, is that what we're thinking he is? Because Tebow,
he's definitely not as he's not
as
as
mobile.
Big
He's not as mobile.
He's not as big or mobile.
So we're saying Tebow's better?
I'm not saying Tebow's better.
I'm not going to be the one to make that comparison. Do I think Tebow's a more NFL caliber style player? Slightly, yes.
Tua has more of a game catered for the NFL level, whereas Tim Tebow did not. And the thing is, I feel like there are college players that are seeing their game, seeing franchises mold their style around them. I think it first started with Tim Tebow, and it failed with Tim Tebow. But you look at guy, and I think now the new wave that we're seeing now is Patrick Mahomes, is Lamar Jackson, is those two guys, and then Kyler Murray.
Two different quarterbacks. You have one of the
two very different quarterbacks, but two quarterbacks that excelled in college and their offenses are being catered to their strengths that they showed off in college, and that you see more on the college level.
Kansas City was pretty good with Alex Smith before,
but they're
Mahomes.
But they're on a whole new level now. They're on a whole new level. After that, you can't. But their potential is so much higher.
Or 7-4.
Their potential is so much higher. The reason why they're not as good this year is because that defense just isn't that good, and he was hurt for a game. So
they
one of
both the games he was out.
No, they didn't.
No, I don't think
they lost to the Packers.
No, they lost to the Packers.
So,
you're right. They lost the Sunday night game.
And look, and that was a really close game that they probably could have won had he played.
They win that if Mahomes.
So
played.
look, you're looking at an 8-3 possible team with Mahomes.
I mean,
which is good enough for third in the AFC.
Do people forget the Chiefs have already beat the Ravens this year?
I think a lot of people do forget because recency bias is totally real. That's why Lamar Jackson is the favorite for MVP.
No, he's not.
He is. The Vegas favorite.
Yeah, Vegas. Okay, but Vegas is wrong. I don't think
because he's getting hot at the right time.
I've said it a lot.
Wait,
Lamar,
the middle of the season's the right time?
Huh?
The middle of the season's the right time to get hot?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
what are we talking about? We're talking about
if we're talking about like today.
I guess.
But... Like the thing is, there have been so many people that have been in front for the MVP. It started off with McCaffrey, Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Now Lamar Jackson.
The thing is,
Deshaun Watson had a flirting with it a couple
Lamar
weeks ago.
Jackson makes MVP plays. He does not put up MVP numbers. 260 yards a game with 4 touchdowns. That is not MVP numbers. Yes, the 4 touchdowns looks nice, but 1, they're not playing anyone. 2, it's just 260 yards a game does not look good.
That they are the number 1 scoring offense in the league.
Let me throw something at you.
Part of
Their
that
defense is nasty.
And that is also part of it.
Here's an issue I have with MVP in the NFL. Just an issue I have with that is let's take a look at what MVP stands for. Most valuable player. Where is statistics on that list?
Number 1.
Most, okay, true. But let's take a look at that. It should not be
yes.
about statistics. It should be about who has the most value for their team.
Okay, when was the last time that was the?
I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm saying that's what it should be.
When it comes to MVP in any sport,
Well, if that was the case,
there's
LeBron
always
would win
a
every
case.
year.
There's always a case between best player and the most valuable player. So, like in the NBA this past year, look, James Harden for his team was probably more valuable. Look, if you take James Harden off of the Rockets are far worse. If you take Giannis off of the Bucks could still hang in there.
Should we just change it to Player of the Year, like the name?
I mean,
Honestly, yeah, because MVP is so misleading.
think about it. Super
is
Bowl
very
MVP.
misleading.
You
It
were
is
the
very
most.
misleading.
Okay, I mean, I guess like it's easier for a game to determine, but for a whole season. Because, like, for a game, you can go, like, Super Bowl MVP. You can determine, okay, this player was the most valuable in this game. But, like, you can look at, like, okay, so Nick Foles won Super Bowl MVP. But Carson Wentz was doing the same thing with that offense. I mean, you look at, like, and also, fun fact, the last 6 quarterbacks to win the MVP and appear in the Super Bowl lost the Super Bowl that year. So, fun statistic. I always love those. But the thing
So
with...
you're saying the MVP is going to the...
Well, you don't want to win the MVP.
Yeah. It's a curse.
You certainly don't.
It's a curse.
But it's like...
Madden and MVP.
The MVP, it's like last year, Mahomes was clearly the most valuable player in the league. But it's like, when are we going to get away from the word value and go to the word stats? Because that's what it is.
I completely agree. It's all about the stats nowadays. And to me, that's not what most valuable means. Unfortunately, I'm not the one making these decisions. So really, my opinion doesn't mean that much. But I do think that at least the name should be under consideration for change because it's very misleading as it is.
I mean, y'all hit the nail on the head, I feel. I think, look, if you had to say right now who the MVP is right now, like the true MVP.
Like with the word value
If we're
implemented.
looking at the word
If we're looking at,
valuable.
so the most, I'm going to say most valuable player, or you can say, so I'm going to ask you this, who is the most valuable player?
Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson.
This is going to sound weird, but Dak Prescott.
Dak Prescott.
No. Amari Cooper's more valuable than Dak Prescott.
I mean, if we're being truly honest.
I mean, look at Dak's numbers.
If we're being
like-
truly honest.
I hate Dak. Like, I don't like the Cowboys, so it's not like I'm saying this because...
That can't be
Actually,
easy to say.
honestly, we're going to be fully real. Who's the most valuable to their team? It's Todd Gurley. The Rams got to the Super Bowl abusing Todd
That's
Gurley.
last season.
Okay, and what have they done this year? They've lost games in which Gurley doesn't get the touches. What did they do last week? They give Gurley 22 touches, and they win the game. I mean, Gurley is the X factor.
Let me ask you this: What would Carolina's record be without Christian McCaffrey right now?
Lord knows.
Probably like 2-8.
I'd give him 3.
Well, I don't know, because they got better without Cam Newton.
Yeah, I'd give him 3 wins.
I just have to look at their schedule again.
I think that
Yeah,
is.
I
I think that.
Well, it depends, because, like, who's McCaffrey's replacement? Because, like, that, I mean, everything like that
Reggie
matters.
Bonifant?
Oh, so we're saying, like, it's like a backup. Like, if he's, like, hurt, like, so we're saying if McCaffrey got hurt instead of Newton?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, then they're, like, 0 whatever, because Newton's terrible.
Yeah. I mean,
but that's because Newton's bad.
so I think that's my case for McCaffrey being MVP.
I mean, actually, really MVP? This is, Teddy Bridgewater.
Oh, we're getting into the depths of this talk
Like,
now.
Teddy Bridgewater.
Teddy Bridgewater has not lost a game as a starter. This year,
Teddy
so.
Bridgewater is like
you're
the MVP of the Saints.
in a weird way,
You know who else
not
has?
wrong.
You know who else has not lost a game as a starter this year?
Me.
Devlin Hodges.
Oh, that guy.
So
Mason Rudolph
so
had one of the
Mason
roughest
Rudolph's back
seasons
up.
I've ever seen.
So yeah, I
Hope his
mean,
head's
man,
okay.
yeah. What a season Mason Rudolph has had. let's go back into that because obviously that would have been probably the number one thing we would have talked about on the show this week had we had a regular episode.
Oh boy.
It's 6 days after the fact, but it's still newsworthy because today Myles Garrett is appealing his
I'm going to quote Myles Garrett's press conference. It was an accident.
It was
what was an accident?
I
Partain, if I accidentally hit you with the helmet I
listen,
swung at you,
he swung for the shoulders. He accidentally hit him in the head. That's how it goes.
Whoops.
Sorry, I didn't mean to hit you in the head.
I didn't mean
It
to. Yeah.
happened. Your head happened to be in the way of your shoulders. It just works out that way.
I didn't mean to crash in your car, but
Yeah, like
if you watch it out of context, it looks like Garrett's trying to put his helmet back on him.
and that's what it was trying to. It was an accident.
I was just trying to help
He was trying to
brother.
help him out, man.
Like this Twitter trend right now. I don't know how it started, but I'm gonna tell my kids. Like I don't know how that started, but like I saw when it was like I'm gonna tell my kids he was trying to put his helmet back on him. I thought it was funny.
I mean,
yeah.
I still don't. How did that trend start? Anyone know?
I don't know,
could
but
not tell.
I'm
I
so
love
confused because
I
there's
know, I
like two
couldn't
of them.
tell you.
I've only seen two that are funny out of the 100.
I'm gonna tell my kids that HTF is ESPN.
I mean,
that's truthful though. It's not like.
Facts.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's as real as it gets here.
But no, the Panther. I mean, so we'll jump back to like the McCaffrey question. Yeah, McCaffrey's clearly MVP of that team.
Thank you.
Is he the MVP of the league? With the word value,
No.
I think it's. I mean,
What about Dalvin Cook?
Oh,
that's interesting because the Vikings, because he
Dalvin
tore his
Cook
ACL. He's definitely a comeback player.
Dalvin Cook is
Yeah, 100%.
the number 2 rusher in the league at 1,017 yards. He already has 1,000 yards, and there's still 6 games left in the season. So I think that might help Dalvin's case.
that's actually interesting.
I mean, and you could even argue Michael Thomas is the only receiver with over 1,000 yards, and he has 1,141. He's on pace to have the most catches in a single season in NFL history.
So let me bring this up. Is this not better having this kind of discussion than who has the best stats where it's 2 or 3 people? There's an actual discussion for who's the most valuable player. This is good. This is healthy for the league.
I mean, if we want to do stats, there's only one player that has a touchdown in every single game this season. Anyone know that player?
Is it?
In every game he's played this season.
Is it Dak Prescott?
No, it's Antonio Brown.
Oh, there you go.
Boy. So we're looking
That's true.
stats per game.
That's
If we're
true.
looking stats per game, Antonio Brown is
Antonio
clearly
Brown.
the MVP.
Yeah, he was the MVP of my fantasy team.
Yeah.
God, I drafted him.
How's that
instead
going
of,
out for
I
you?
drafted him instead of Dalvin Cook,
Oh.
and instead of being 11-0, I'm 6-5.
I have a funny fantasy story this week.
Yeah. Let me hear it.
So Thursday night happened. I had the Pittsburgh defense, who's really bailed me out in a lot of spots this year. Been a really good defense this year.
Yep.
And I was going against Odell Beckham and the Cleveland defense. And like this was the first time for me that the Pittsburgh defense had let me down because I picked them up after
they let
after
you
their
down.
bye.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I was down maybe like 30 points. And I have Russell Wilson as my quarterback. So I was on a bye this week. And I was looking for a quarterback.
I'm always on a bye.
Right.
Let me just say something. So I was down like 30 points. I was like, there's no way I'm winning this week. So what did I do?
I'm like, who'd you
I
pick
went to
up?
that waiver wire on Saturday night. It's like I just need someone to start tomorrow. Anyone want to take a guess as to who I picked up as my quarterback?
Dwayne Haskins.
No.
No, I'm gonna take.
Derek Carr.
Good lord, Who? I have no idea. Who.
I don't know. Derek Carr. I'm trying to think who had a good week that would have been available.
I picked up
Jeff Driscoll.
Taysom Hill.
Oh. Yeah,
I was doing it for, giggles.
That's like drafting Aaron
That's-
Hernandez.
I mean,
Oh.
what did
I don't
Taysom
know,
Hill
that's-
have? What did Taysom Hill have this week?
Touchdown?
No.
I was like, I don't know.
know.
I
couldn't
did
tell
not
you.
watch the Saints game.
How about 9 total yards?
Oh. Yeah,
So I got 0.9 points out of it.
Did you win?
No, I lost by 8 points.
So if you picked up a real
If I
quarterback,
picked
you
up a
if
real
you
quarterback,
picked
I
up-
would have won.
literally anyone that is functional at the quarterback.
could have
Yeah.
got Jeff Driscoll.
I could have picked up. Yeah, I would have won with Jeff Driscoll.
I'm going Carson Wentz this week because Mahomes has a bye.
Yeah. Well,
Still
now.
my pick.
Well, I also lost Marlon Mack and Austin Eckler's on the bye this week. So
Sounds like could be a rough time.
It's unfortunate Taysom Hill can't be my running back.
Right?
That's the thing. He should be a flex player. He's not a quarterback. He's not a quarterback.
I agree with that.
And
He
that's
should
frustrating.
be.
That's frustrating.
I can vouch for you.
But anyway, All right, let's get back to real football here. I want to talk a little bit about this weekend's games. We're approaching the hour mark here, but thankfully today we are going on a little bit longer with KP, Kyle Partain, Jaret Kappelman, man in the middle, host of Might I Add and Hitting the Field, respectively, with Jeremy Brener, the host of the Hitting the Field podcast. So we're going to talk about this weekend's NFL games. So we start off tomorrow night. Big game in the AFC South. Colts-Texans. That game is arguably for the division. And thank God, because we got good Thursday Night Football. I love good Thursday Night Football games. Colts-Texans tomorrow, guys. What do you guys expect?
You want to start this one, Partain, or
Colts-Texans? I'm going to give it to the Texans. I'm going to give it to the Texans. It's a tricky decision. I don't really think either one is going to be challenged by any of the other two teams in that division. So the winner of this game, I think, is in serious track to win the AFC South.
They're both 6-4,
That's what I'm
and
saying.
if the Colts win, they have the for sure tiebreaker because
Right.
they won the first meeting between the two.
But I give the edge to Houston because I just think Houston's better. If you're looking at that roster, I think Houston's just a better team. I take Deshaun Watson and Houston to not a big win, but a close.
Jacoby Brissett has never lost to the Texans, though.
Oh,
How many times has Jacoby Brissett played?
Like
he's
4
beat
times.
He's beat him on the
Okay.
Patriots once, and he's beat him. His first start was with the Patriots, and he beat him on a Thursday night game.
So last time,
Streaks are made to be broken, man. Streaks are made to be broken.
I hope you're right.
But so I mean, the Texans themselves, they haven't since that J.J. Watt injury. It's been a little different in the locker room. I feel like the leadership just isn't there. But
I mean, they've played 1 game, 2 games,
2
since
games.
then.
It's 1-1. But the Texans, I mean, they played the Ravens last week. The Ravens have looked like a different team at home. They have also apparently paid off the NFL and the refs at home. DeAndre Hopkins was clearly interfered with. That was funny.
I mean, I don't think that would have changed the outcome
No,
of the game.
not
It
at
would have
all.
changed the momentum of the game.
It
It would have changed momentum of the game because then it would have been 7-0.
the 1 yard line.
It would have been 7-0 possibly for the Texans, and they would have scored, and it could
What
have
was the score
changed
last
thing.
week at that Texans?
It was 41-7.
41-7. Yeah, Carlos Hyde had the touchdown.
Carlos
line,
had
right?
a touchdown. Thank
But,
God for that.
But I mean, I think you have to favor the Texans. They're at home. This is a must-win game. Watson and Hopkins are gonna connect for big plays, and Hyde's gonna do his thing. But I mean, you just the Texans. I feel like are the more complete team. I mean, the Colts have had issues on the kicking side. I mean, they lost to the Dolphins. They lost to the Dolphins.
And they have no Marlon
They'd
Mack
be in
this week.
first place if they didn't lose to the Dolphins. And they have no Mac. I mean, Mac attack. Mac's been like the key player in football in the past couple years, you know. Daryl Mack about to be Mac
That's what I'm
Jones.
saying.
I mean, Marlon Mack. But no, it's going to be Texans. Not by a landslide. It'll come down to the wire, but I'd favor the Texans by a touchdown.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say who wins or loses. I'm not that kind of guy.
Yeah, you are.
You're just
really-
nervous.
Did you just write
I
Texans
am
on a
very
piece of
nervous.
paper?
Yeah, you're just nervous.
Look, I think for the Texans, I think they showed last week. Last week was a good test as to where they are currently,
Clearly not anywhere
and
close
clearly
to the top.
not anywhere where they want to be.
No.
And but this is like, so look, this is the gauntlet of their schedule. The Ravens, Colts, Patriots. So they get the Patriots next week on Sunday Night Football. They need this win.
Yeah, I
they
agree.
need
This
this win
is a
because
must-win.
that's an L. They keep pace with the Colts. But then after that, your schedule is almost all wins. I think the only game they're really going to have a struggle with is at the Titans. But that's their toughest game left on that schedule after the Patriots.
If that's your toughest game after that, you gotta like
So-
those.
the Titans are looking good with
I
Mr.
wanna say this.
Titans
Tannehill.
are
the
maybe the most
AFC
up and down team in the AFC.
The
South.
AFC
I don't know
wild
what's thinking
card.
about them.
The AFC wild card is going to be the predominant wild card race this year. I think the NFC is almost locked up at this point.
Well, I mean, I think the NFC
two
wild
wild
card
cards-
teams are better than the AFC wild card teams.
Fair, but the two NFC wildcard teams both have 8 wins, and they are a game and a half ahead of every other team. Minnesota and Seattle. And it's hard to put, like, and you can make a case for the Rams, but
I'm going to say the only
there's a
team,
shot.
like both those teams could crumble based off their schedule. Like The Lions are a better team than their record. The Bears are the biggest coin flip I have seen in NFL history.
No, that's the Titans.
The Seahawks.
That's right.
That's the Titans.
That's right.
True. But, I mean, the Seahawks have a rough stretch of games. I mean, that division's open. I mean, even the 49ers could fold, and they could find themselves in a wild card spot.
Here's in the NFC. I think to Jeremy's point, they're pretty much finalized, give or take.
Yeah.
The
Division winners.
The drop off.
But
The
here's the
drop
thing with
off
the wild card.
is 6 to 7.
I
in
would
the
not.
NFC.
I would not count out the Rams for a potential wild card push, and I would not put out the loser of Dallas and Philly in that division.
That I think that
You don't think
the
that
loser of that
I
game,
think-
the winner of that division wins. Winner of that game is going to win the division. The other team's not going to make the playoffs, and the winner of that division is losing their first playoff game.
I think
it's just simple as
I
that.
think there is a shot that Philly or Dallas could get hot and still make.
Well,
it as a
Philly
wild
should
card
get
spot.
hot because they should win. At least they should win after the Seahawks game. They should not lose another game because they
That's-
play Washington,
thing.
the Giants, the Dolphins, and Cowboys. Like those are their teams.
Dallas
Let's take a
is 6-4.
play
They are a
New
game
England.
and a half back of the second wild card. Granted, they are the NFC East leaders right now, but they have
They're going to
a
finish.
stretch of
What's their
5
sch-
games.
what's their schedule?
They could honestly, they could go 0-5 in the
What's
next
their
5
schedule?
games. At the Patriots this weekend.
That's a loss.
home against the Bills on Thanksgiving.
I
so
hope
a
they
short
lose.
Oh,
week.
they're going to beat the Bills.
No, please
home.
They're going to beat the Bills on Thanksgiving. Yes, Dallas wins that.
Yes,
don't-
probably. But the Bill, I need the Bills to win.
I
Dallas
mean,
wins that
I want to
game.
see what they're.
I know they play. I mean, they play the Eagles in Philly.
Yep.
I mean, and then they play. Is it the Redskins? No, I think it's the Giants.
They get
Or no,
the last
they're
game of the
gonna
season
win.
is Washington.
That's a win. I'm telling you, both of those teams could start pulling. They could start stringing together some wins, and
But the thing is,
Dallas has the advantage of being in
the
the
only
lead in that division
issue
right
is
now.
is that the Vikings have the tiebreaker over the Eagles and the Cowboys.
Yes.
The Seahawks. No, they don't play the Seahawks. But the other wild card team that could be. I mean, I just don't. The Vikings are the team because like the 49ers or Seahawks are locked in a playoff spot. I think.
I would tend to agree with that.
And the other team, the Vikings, I mean, they just have the tiebreaker over both the NFC East teams. I don't see a realistic way. Like, I just don't see a way that could flip.
Yeah, I don't. I agree. I think the Vikings are probably going to be that wild card, but don't count out a push from those two teams. I think it could get close. And
I hope.
Maybe
they
a
could put,
nudge.
Eagles
I think,
turn it around.
I think both
Maybe
of
a
those.
nudge.
I think both Dallas and Philly could put some pressure on Minnesota to start winning those games because,
Kirk Cousins.
yeah. But no, I do think, as it stands, I think those will probably be your 6 teams in the playoffs in the NFC. But I'm saying there is a chance that these teams could
Like, I
push.
think there's
even the
7
Rams could make a push for that.
There's
playoff
7
spot.
teams, I think, that have a chance of making the playoffs. And it's the 6 that are currently in the playoffs picture right now, then the Eagles, because I think that division is still open. I think other than that, I would think it is set. I don't.
You don't give the Rams much of a shot at all.
No, I just don't.
No?
Just because they're in that division, I
they're-
don't think
yeah.
they're not better than the Seahawks or
No,
the
probably
49ers.
Probably not.
The Rams have a real tough schedule.
They
to
got
end the
Baltimore this
season.
week.
Baltimore this week on
Yeah,
Monday
I
Night
gotta
Football.
find a new defense for fantasy
And
this
then
week.
they have
Yeah.
to go to they host Seattle on a Sunday night in December. They go to Dallas in December. They go to Santa Clara on that Saturday night right before Christmas.
Oh, we playing
And
Christmas
they play
Eve games?
and they play the Cardinals twice, and the Cardinals have proven that they can hang in with those teams, and they haven't really won a lot of those games, but they've proven that they can
They're not a
play
pushover.
spoiler.
They're not a
They can
pushover.
play spoiler. You can't. Those 2 wins aren't guarantees. What do you want to look at?
No, I was just looking at the schedule.
Okay.
So,
So NFC wildcard I feel like is pretty much it's much more of a lock than the AFC is, and that's
absolutely.
where I was going with this. The AFC wildcard race is pretty tight. So you have the current wildcards are the
Raiders.
7-3 Bills and the 6-4 Texans, but you have a 6-4 Raiders team who has looked different since they lost to the Texans. And they get the Jets this week. That's a very winnable game. They even can make an outside run for the division because if they beat the Jets this weekend, they are 7-4, and they go into Kansas City tied for first place in the AFC West, and a win in Kansas City would put them in first place because Kansas City's on their bye this week. So
let's go Raiders.
Are the Raiders a legitimate shot at getting this wild card spot or even a playoff spot? Just put it there.
Call
Maybe
me
a division.
crazy, but if Antonio Brown was a normal human being, the Raiders would be in first place in that division.
I mean,
Yeah. I would agree with that because Kansas City has been.
Yes.
Kansas City hasn't been
With
lights
all the
out,
distractions, Oakland's still 6-4. They had no distractions, and Antonio Brown playing at his.
I think
top.
honestly, I'm gonna be honest. I think not having Antonio Brown has helped them.
Okay, yeah, because he's a distraction. But if
Exactly.
he was a normal human
That's-
and there were no distractions,
So if
they
he was
would be even
if he was
better.
stats only and an X,
If he was just an
Here's
X.
the thing, does Oakland have a legitimate chance for a wild card?
yes.
Yeah, in the
Yes.
AFC, absolutely.
Yes, because
anyone that has 5 wins or more has a legitimate shot to make the wild card.
the
in
Texans
NFC.
could lose their
AFC.
next 2. Like, a lot can happen.
I mean, there's still a lot to be decided between Indy. and
I
Houston.
mean, the Bills, their strength of victory is like literally the worst in the NFL. Like,
Yes,
I
also,
don't trust Buffalo.
And look, the Bills have a tough schedule down the stretch too. They gotta play Dallas on a short
Dallas.
week. They gotta go host the Ravens. They have to play a Steelers. They go to New England.
that could be 4 losses right
That
there.
it could. They could be 9-7 and on the
well,
outside.
I said that for the Patriots, and they're like 5 games, and so far they're 2-0.
And then you
Or
can
no,
also
they're
is-
1-1.
this
They're
is-
1-1 because they lost to the Ravens.
This is New England versus Buffalo we're talking about here.
Yeah, I'm trusting Mr. Brady.
Yeah.
And look, the Steelers are also 5-5. I know they looked. I think just the negative press they've gotten has put teams down on them, and I think Mason Rudolph is one of the most hated quarterbacks in the NFL right now.
Yeah, no, that's safe to say. Probably
So
right next to
I think teams are down on the Steelers, but
They're
do they have a legit shot?
Quietly decent team.
who, the Steelers?
Pittsburgh. They're
They
a
just
quietly
can't stay.
decent
They
team.
can't stay healthy.
No, they can't. But like I said, if you have 5 wins or more in the AFC right now, you are seriously in contention for one of those wild card
And look,
spots.
I mean, and you can't even count out the 4-win Browns. Because the Browns have a real nice schedule coming up. They got to play the Bengals twice. They got to play the Dolphins this weekend. That's 3 wins right there. They do play the Ravens, but they beat the Ravens this year on the road. They get them at home in December when they are possibly the hottest team in the NFL. They've won their last 2 games. They probably win this weekend, 3 in a row. They go and play Pittsburgh again. That could be another win. That's 4. I mean, Myles Garrett I doubt sees the football field again this
he's
season.
not this year. He's done for
But
sure.
here's
How are
the
you
thing with
appealing?
Cleveland.
You're appealing an indefinite suspension. What are you appealing? Because
What-
we don't even know how long
What
it
he's
is.
appealing though is, and I read part of the argument here. What he's appealing is the fact that nobody has been indefinitely suspended for a hit in a game before. Granted,
I mean, this wasn't in a game.
This
This,
is
was
not-
completely.
this is not
yes.
just
Granted,
some
this is
normal
something
hit.
on a totally different level. So he's setting the standard.
Yeah, I see what he's
and
doing,
and
though.
that's part of what the NFL wants to do with Garrett is they want to make an example out of him, and they want to say like, this is what happens when you do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, they have a right to. I mean, it's just because no one's ever
Look,
done that.
I think what it will be is, look, I do think that they will back down on Garrett's suspension just because it is his it's really his first offense. I don't think he's been fined or suspended.
No, because he's had I think he's had 5 after the whistle penalties this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no,
It's
they're not gonna. I mean, I don't think they're gonna.
Well,
they
maybe
might just-
they'll change his indefinite
Yeah,
suspension
to
to
the rest
like
of this
the rest
I
of the
think
season.
that's yeah.
he's done
And the
for
playoffs?
The
No,
season.
there's
They
no way
can't.
he will not see the field again.
Yeah,
this
they just
season.
can't let him back.
That's a bad precedent to set if he gets back. If he gets
Just
back
because the way the NFL's handled a bunch of other stuff in the past, they have to do this just to save their own brand. But back to football, another team we haven't talked about. The Chargers are 4-7. All 7 losses were by 7 points or less.
That's got to sting for Chargers fans.
And like,
Wherever they are.
Yeah.
if Phillip Rivers wasn't so bad, that's another team that should probably draft a quarterback this year.
Yeah,
But if Phillip Rivers wasn't so bad,
that pains.
That's
that
all I gotta
pains-
say.
That pains you to say Phillip Rivers and bad in the same sentence. That,
is bad.
He is. There's no denying. What is it? 7 interceptions in the past 2 games.
Sorry, he threw 4.
Yeah, you can't do that. I don't care who you. Unless Blake Bortles is the only other person that can do that in the NFL. And
So
he's not even starting anymore.
we've gone
so.
through almost all of the wild card hopefuls.
Good company.
Give me 2 teams.
For what?
Who's
AFC?
going to be a wild card?
AFC?
Yeah.
An AFC South team.
Okay, that's not a team though.
Oh, well, because I don't know who's going to win the division.
Okay, well,
The Colts.
who's
Fine,
winning the
I'll say
division?
the Colts.
So the Colts are a wild card. That means Texans win the division.
Yep.
All right, you're on my good list today.
Colts and Raiders.
Okay, Colts and Raiders. KP, you
Oh,
agree
trust-
with that?
I trust the Bills.
I do agree with the Colts, and I'm gonna go with Buffalo just because they do have a heads up as far as the win column's concerned. I think there's a lot of catching up to do if Oakland's gonna. Well, not a lot, but there is some catching up to do. What are they? A game and a half back from Buffalo? So
Yeah.
maybe not
The thing
that
is,
much, actually.
these teams
Buffalo
are going.
wins one more game this season.
These teams are going to come up, and it's going to be
you're
be
right.
final reckoning.
You're
and
right. Though.
it's
I'm looking at this Buffalo schedule. I'm not.
Cowboys,
sure.
Ravens,
They got 2
Steelers,
wins. Buffalo has
Patriots.
2 wins. Buffalo will get 2 more wins.
I don't even know if
that's
they
9.
beat Denver.
They beat
10
Denver and they beat the
wins.
Jets.
Denver
10
almost beat the
wins.
Vikings.
10 wins get you a wild card.
They're
in
going to
the
get
AFC
9 and
East.
7,
They'll be 9 and 7.
and that's
9 and
that's
7.
close
I mean,
with Oakland. They are
it
cutting
depends on the
close.
Raiders.
All
like,
right, so the Bills are 9 and 7. The Colts, Texans say y'all are saying it's a
I'll
loss.
give the nod to the Raiders, but
I'm gonna
it's
look
going to be
at-
close.
I have to look at tiebreakers
Yeah,
too
it's
for
gonna
that
be
stuff
close.
because that's gonna matter. But like the Raiders' schedule is more favorable. Like Jets, Titans, Jags, Chargers, Broncos, and and they have the Chiefs in there, so they're probably gonna lose that. But like 5 of their last 6 are looking like
Very winnable.
winnable games.
Very winnable. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's
I mean, you look at the Colts. The Raiders beat the Colts this year.
Yep.
The Texans beat the Raiders this year.
Yep.
But might not have that. That's why this game is so important on Thursday night. It's probably the most important game in terms of just seeding this season, I think, so far. And look, the Texans have a win over the Chiefs. That if that could also possibly play a role in this. And look, the Steelers beat the Colts. The Titans and the Colts have to do battle later in the season. The Browns beat the Steelers. There's so much so far that has it's a giant mess, I feel like. And the NFC is competent and knows what they're doing. And all they need to figure out is where teams go. The AFC so we said this, the drop off in the NFC is 6 and 7. I think the AFC, it's very clear, it's 2 and 3. It's the Ravens and the Patriots, and then it's everybody
I
else.
almost want to say, like, I just want to give the Chiefs credit just because I know what Mahomes can do, but I would
think
have
he
to.
can.
But I will
have
say this.
to
I will
agree.
say this though. I think that the Chiefs have the best chance at beating either the Ravens or the Patriots. Just because their offense is built for that, and the Chiefs have to play the Patriots later in the year, so there's a whole lot left. The AFC,
the NFC is a disaster
The
in
NFC
terms of matchups
yes.
because I think
Any
I feel like
team
all the
can
road
beat any of
teams.
them.
I think the road teams will probably do better than the home teams.
right. Isn't
Yeah.
that Seattle's been better on
Like
the road?
Seattle,
than
yeah,
Seattle,
I don't think
Minnesota.
Seattle hasn't lost a road game this season, have they?
I don't believe so.
I don't
think
think Seattle's lost the
both
road
their
game.
losses.
I think they
come
lost
home.
both. They lost to the Saints at home and the Ravens at home. So it's
That
like
makes no sense.
Yeah,
No, especially in
So-
Seattle, that makes absolutely no sense.
we do have a lot of football to talk, and we'll talk about it on the show on Monday, the aftermath of Week 12 and the
there will be an
Thanksgiving
aftermath.
the Thanksgiving games.
disasters.
But I want to close the show today with a little UCF talk because we haven't had might I add in a little while, but we do have a lot going on the soccer pitch,
We
KP,
choked.
and you know a lot about it.
Choked.
So KP, men's soccer, UCF
1-0.
they lost 1-0. It's their first. I want to say, is it first home loss of the season?
First home loss. Only the second loss of the entire season.
Comes
This
in
is-
the conference
This
championship
is so
finals.
frustrating because this is exactly what happened last year. We essentially ran the gauntlet last year in the American Athletic Conference. I think there was one conference loss last season, and we get the number 1 seed for the conference tournament, breeze our way to the finals, and then lose to SMU. New season. This is going to be a better team, and it is a better team. We only lose one time in the entire season. That's the season opener to a top 4 Wake Forest team. Run the table in the American. We don't lose in the American Conference. We blow out Temple in the first match in the semifinals, our first game of the conference tournament. Look as good as we've looked all season. And then we drop a dud to SMU again. And it drops us all the way to the 9 seed. So now not only does that mean we're not conference champions, that takes away a home game for the NCAA tournament. That sucks.
And you got to go play SMU.
Yeah, SMU at the
Who just
8.
beat you.
Assuming SMU wins and UCF wins their first round, that's a third-time matchup. And if I'm being honest, I don't think we have a shot at beating SMU on the road. They know how to... Our entire offense runs through Cal Jennings, and SMU just
He's like the kryptonite.
Right. They know how to play. They are in this conference. SMU is number 1 in the conference in goals allowed per game and goals scored per game. If your offense runs entirely through Cal Jennings and you press and play very little defense, which I hate to say it, but UCF does not play that much defense. They put everyone forward, and it sucks because SMU is going to take advantage of that. If SMU breaks away, and they inevitably will because they're that talented, they're going to score because they have several options that can score, and it's not just the ball does not run through one player, and it's very frustrating. But it is what it is. UCF losing to SMU 1-0.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head kind of thing. But, I hope that they... Do you think that last year might have changed the outlook on the team? Possibly. And, they don't want history to repeat itself, so they're going to do everything they can in their power to make sure that doesn't happen.
Good Lord, I hope so, because they lost to Lipscomb in the first round of the NCAA tournament last year. Sure. So
No.
yeah, I really hope they take something from that at least, because I'll tell you, the postseason parallels are ridiculous right now.
Yep.
Losing to SMU conference now we'll probably, I don't know who it's going to be in the first round because that game is yet to be played.
Denver or
I don't know
Missouri State, right?
I don't know which one it's going to be, but I'll tell you, both of them are going to be ready because now everyone knows if you cover Cal and you make the other team, make other players like Vivi or Perez or even Villalobos, you make them score, they're not going to be able to do it consistently.
Right.
And I'm not sure that UCF has a deep run in them in this NCAA tournament, despite how great of a year it's been.
Here's to hoping that you're wrong on that.
Oh, trust me, I hope I'm wrong too.
Women's soccer also approaching its
They're
postseason.
done.
Well, they're done.
They didn't make. Yeah, no, their season's
Rest
over.
in peace.
They had a bad year.
They
what
had
they've
they
had
had
in
a
the
chance, but they blew it. They couldn't quite beat USF in the semis in conference tournament, and they're just that's the season for
And
them.
the volleyball team is not as prolific this year.
I would tend to disagree with that. I think Cincinnati's just better. I think Cincinnati is very good. I think UCF is just as good as last season, and maybe even a slightly better offensive team. They're not as good on defense. But
Who did we lose to? Florida Gulf Coast first round last year at home.
But FGCU is a good team.
Yeah, but we were the 1 seed in that region. It was us, Florida Gulf Coast,
we were
Florida, and
the
Florida
1
State.
seed because Florida had a down year.
Oh, okay.
That's Florida still ended up winning that region.
I was gonna say, how do 4 Florida teams end up in the same region? Like
It's
that?
all about in volleyball. It's all going to be about traveling.
Just
so,
travel, yeah.
for example,
Cost
this year
benefit.
I do believe the regional is going to go to Florida, and I think Florida State, FGCU, and UCF are going to be the same 3 teams to join them in that regional. But it's going to be in Gainesville. But volleyball team, UCF volleyball is a very, very talented team, and there are several weapons that they can use to score each and every game.
McKenna Melville.
McKenna Melville is on fire. Christina Fisher's had a great season. Allie Sable's really stepped up as a senior. And I just think the team is going... I don't know if they'll win the conference tournament. It's going to be hosted by UCF. It's all here this weekend. UCF plays Friday. They play Tulsa. That should be a win. They beat Tulsa on the road, so I can't imagine they lose to Tulsa here.
Get some football revenge there.
God, we'll talk about the football team in a second.
I mean, the UCF women's basketball team got revenge on Pitt earlier. So
It doesn't matter.
Dude, that women's basketball team has a rough start to the season.
they did. They went on the road.
They've been
after
outscored by how many points now in the past 2 games?
They lost
much.
ugly twice on the road,
Yeah.
and I think did they lose on Sunday?
No, they ended up winning. They did win on Sunday. I think it was the 6 point.
I'll pull it up.
UCF basketball
6.0.
won't be as good as it was last year on both sides. It's just, especially men's.
The men's
not
team,
They won.
anyone.
They won.
It's not disappointing.
So they were
it's where
they were
should be.
trailing this
But
weekend.
that's what I'm saying. It's a disappointing. It's
Yeah,
disappointing
it's-
after last season to see this team. be
I
like
mean,
this.
we lost Dawkins, we lost Taco.
So they
we
were
lost
trailing
DJ.
going into the fourth quarter this weekend at SFA,
Yeah.
Stephen F. Austin, and they
That's
got
a
the
good-
win.
It's a good
They won
March
by
Mad-
what, 6?
Good
They won
March
by
Madness
6. They were
team,
down by 1 going into the fourth quarter, and they won.
Yeah. So I think the women's team is a decent team. They clearly aren't going to compete with the top level of competition.
We're gonna beat UConn.
Yeah. No, good thing is with UConn leaving the conference, we can actually win a conference tournament starting next season.
Yeah, that should be interesting.
So
Yeah, that's no fun.
UConn's gone. It comes down to UCF, USF almost every year. It feels like now for women's basketball after this one. But as far as men's basketball is concerned,
Yeah, that men's team was
Trash.
also a little bit
the
rough.
offense is so bad right now.
I'll say this
it's
though.
hard to watch.
Did you catch the last couple minutes on Sunday?
I did not, but I
It was
saw
a
some
good finish.
highlights.
It was a
and,
nice finish.
Man, was that reminiscent of that NIT game?
Ooh, yes.
Was that reminiscent of
Almost
traveling to
too
Illinois
much.
State, have to make that comeback?
One by
and
one.
What was it? 2-point win this time, but
Yeah,
same
2-point
basic fashion.
Wow,
And
this was before my time. I know what you're talking about, but I
Jaret was
before I was still in high
Jaret
school.
was still at
Still,
St. Thomas.
St. Thomas.
yeah, younger Jaret.
Yeah.
But
Baby
no, it
Jaret.
was
beardless Jaret.
Beardless Jaret for sure. But no, it's very reminiscent of that NIT victory over Illinois State. Good win. I didn't expect UCF, the basketball team. I didn't think they'd win. That's a tough place to play.
Who's your favorite player on this team? Just
There's so many personalities.
yeah, it's a
If I'm being honest, I'm a little biased. Colin Smith, Duval kid, so
Duval.
yeah, gonna have to.
Or is that just because he's named after one of the greats at HTF?
Oh no, yeah, he is. He is.
This
named
is
after one of
true.
the great stations.
This is also true.
Shout out
So
Colin
even more,
Smith.
if Colin Smith wasn't my favorite player before, he definitely is now.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, but I think UCF at best is a low end NIT team. At best, and that's
I
if
think,
they
I think
click.
that,
That's if they
that's
gel.
generous. I think
All
that's
right,
generous.
not in tournament. Favorite tournament.
I think that's
player?
generous. I will say
That's
that.
what I'm saying. At best, if they gel, at best they are a low end NIT team.
Yeah.
I'm not sure this.
They play Charleston Saturday,
That should
and
be a win.
you will be talking about it on My Day Ad this Monday. The return of My Day Ad and the return of the HTF main show hosted by Jaret Kappelman. We'll be talking all of the aftermath from this weekend's football festivities, both on the collegiate level and the NFL. We'll also be talking some NBA. We're going to do an NBA podcast tomorrow, a double feature again this week. So be sure to check that out on our YouTube channel and our on Apple Podcasts as well. So KP, Jaret, for the first time we got the three of us in one room together, and it was pure magical. So I thank you guys so much for coming on a show. We definitely have to do this once or twice before
I finally got in here.
we go. But anyway, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Hitting the Field, and on YouTube as well. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you so much for tuning in.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated chance, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back, okay? Always locked in.